Yo, Tessin, let me get it up here. Let's see what we got going on. Yo, what's up, folks? Hope everybody having a wonderful day. Let's see what we got here. Got a few comments. What's going on, Miles? Got one of my students in the house. Appreciate all y'all stopping by. Hit that like button for me while y'all here. Hands healing up. I'm almost ready to play again, guys. I played for like an hour lightly today. So my hands are getting back together. My fingertips are feeling better. Some things that can, tips real quick. Ice baths, things like that have really been helping me recover. But past that, let's see what we got going on here. So today we're using the Future Impact. So got quite a few other things on here. So we're going to be going through the Future Impact and how I'm using it to control this electro-harmonics blur filter, right? This is an analog filter. And normally you either have to use your foot to control the filter to make it open and close, or you have to use the built-in LFO. Now, with this beautiful Future Impact V4, Panda Audio was kind enough to send me a MIDI to CV cable. And so it's actually a MIDI cable plus the two. So it's a MIDI coming out of the MIDI out of the Future Impact. And the filter trigger part is going into the blurs. Now I can also use this side if I want the filter to open up based on the notes. What's going on, Neo? Appreciate you stopping by. We're always helping out with the super chats. Appreciate you. And of course, shout out to you for making the Future Impact all this Future Impact content happen in the first place. Shout out. So I'm actually using this cable. Now, I would recommend if you buy a Future Impact, go ahead and get this cable with it. It's going to be a MIDI cable, and it's pretty long too. It's going to be the MIDI cable, and then it's going to be these two cables here. This would normally go to the if you have an analog synth. This would be, let me switch to regular view here. This would be the part that goes in to control the actual oscillator pitch, while this would go to the filter of that. So this is the Future Impact by itself. Let me make sure. Yep. And what I'm doing here, I just have it set up with just the oscillators, right? So it's just the oscillators. Hopefully that's a little better. Yeah, I don't want it to be clipping on y'all, but right, so it's just the waveform. Right? So when I kick on the blurst filter, oh, that joint's so creamy. This is one of the creamiest filters that nobody ever talks about. Just filthy McNasty for the back. So warm. And that's literally on the Future Impact. If you bought the pack, and mind you, the pack is available on the Patreon. Make sure y'all grab that if you grab your Future Impact. But this is just a waveform. I believe it's a square on the bottom and a saw on top, but I have the pitches linked together. So without the filter, so you get real nice. That right there, you can use that for something if you felt like it. Right? It's already a nice waveform. And this is the other thing I love about the Future Impact. You can create like these custom waveforms. I'm sure I've mixed in with those two in there. I usually mix in different stuff. I also have some other waveforms set up in there that are a little bit more aggressive, like in the 60s. Just nasty work. And I mean, I love everything about this Future Impact. I'm not gonna lie. It has the great filters built into it. Just for a quick comparison, that's the built-in filter. Built-in filter. So even the built-in filter gets extremely warm. But another way to just open up the different sounds is going to be to have those different waveforms kind of set up. So even here, super aggressive. Let me bring this down. I don't want to keep clipping. So great sound there, but when you can have the filter, and mind you, the filter opening is being triggered by the synth itself. If I want more aggression, I just bring up the resonance. So you can really, with the changing the filters, you know, instead of, you know, I mean, of course, that filter in the Future Impact is super flexible, and it's actually two different filters with also a band pass within it, so you can get like that twin filter effect as well within it. But, you know, I've already designed like a pack with a rack of the filter with a bunch of those sounds in it, so I wanted to explore with some external pedals and pretty much just using the Future Impact as the oscillator and just having it control different filters. And like I said, just changing the resonance on here. So much warmer of a sound. Take all the resonance out. So it's very, very, very much a musical filter. You know, these run about 150 brand new. The Blurs run about 150. These run about these Future Impacts run about 350. You might want to get them now because, you know, I've seen the price going up and up. You know, I would say just if you've been worrying about I'm not even going to talk about nobody else's pedal. I'm just going to talk about this one. But if you want some of the most flexible, you know, options and things like I said, this does things that are very unique. No other, you know, synth pedal, bass synth pedal is allowing you to control a filter with the controlled voltage. Like that's not even heard of, let alone being able to control synth. So if I wanted to control this motif over here with the Future Impact and have it track my bass and then play the sounds on the motif, I can do that as well. But you know, it's just, this thing is quite amazing. And the real cool thing about it is you still have that blend there on the filter, you know, where you can actually get some of that original signal still in there, depending on what you want to do. But I tend to keep it all the way, just the filter, just closer to how the synth, actual synth is, just You know, a little bit of the resonance. And you can also do things like this. So it actually is controlling where it, when I press the key, then the filter LFO starts. Now before, like without this, the control voltage input of the future impact, this blurs by itself. Normally that LFO doesn't stop. Like if you notice, I don't know if you guys can see that too well, but it's a light right here that when you can see it pulsating. But if I just turn it back on to where it just opens when I play a note, you see it lighten up. So just with this one filter, you can get a ton of different options, and you get that nice warm analog feel to the sound. Now, even with, like if I flip to some of the other things in the pack as well, that's when I like to do a little bit more of the blend. So, because otherwise it negates the whole sound, but I still want to add that nice warm analog bottom to the sound. So what I'll do is I'll have it just set to the filter. This mode here. Turn it on the filter mode. Right? So that's that sound. Here's the sound, just how I designed it. Let's do a different one. Let's do something. Yeah, we'll use this one. Oh, that built-in filter. Wow, boy, that thing crazy. So just straight up funk nasty. We say I want that does sound nice and creamy up top, but I want to add some of this analog bottom in there. So say I turn on the blurst. I can take that, we'll blend it. without it. Still a great sound, right? And all these sounds are available in the pack that's on Patreon as well. But you throw that blurst in there and you blend it. All of a sudden you got like some extra bottom in there. I wouldn't even say bottom. I would just say just maybe a little extra bottom, but it's like it's more warmth. It just gets so much warmer when you throw it on the. You can pretty much take any of my patches and throw this on and blend it like that. Just a little resonance around 9 o'clock. Mixes around 10, or the blend rather. In the filter mode, being triggered by the future impact via the control voltage. So the filter opens and closes when I articulate notes, but stays open. See, as I articulate, the filter opens. But if I just play legato, it just stays open. So just like regular synth filters. But this one, like I said, this is, about 150 brand new. I seen them going for like 80, 90 used. And nobody ever talks about the blurs. The electro harmonics blurs filter is one of the best. And it's the creamiest sounding pedal filter I've ever played and used. That's why I had to add it. Look how creamy it makes it without it. Right? With it. It just makes it so much creamier, and even when you especially when you're playing it through your bass cabinet and stuff, like I was running these bass sounds through an actual bass amp, and man, I can only imagine when I have some subs in the room, it's just gonna be insane. Like the warmth and the quality of it. Now, what I also like to add in there is different filters, right? So I also have an electro harmonics bass balls that I like to use on this these type of sounds as well. Let's do this. Let's go back to the original joint. Just the waveform. Right, just the waveform there. Baseballs. Baseballs is a serious filter too. Like, and that gets slept on. I got this joint like 7 years ago for $40, and you know, I've used it on occasion for different things. But who would have known it was such an effective bass synth filter? This joint get funky. I'm gonna turn on this Atlas compressor, and this on the ToneX one, I'm gonna turn on the Ampeg BA series head. If you want any of my amps and stuff, any of my preamps that I own that you see me review, whatever, on for the ToneX stuff, all that's on Patreon. As a matter of fact, any of these pedals you see, for the most part, already has packs on Patreon. So, oh my goodness. I mean, I absolutely love the way these filters just kind of change everything, you know. Let me see, refresh this chat. But come on now, tell me that's not. Then if I just wanted just a nice, if I want that warmer side of the electroharmonic baseballs, I just bring that response down. So, but let's try the spectrum. So we're gonna use a 6-pole filter on the spec that I created on the Spectrum. What's this? Source Audio Spectrum. See how much the filters really matter? Like having different filter options kind of really open up this Future Impact V4. Now I don't have the MXR bass synth filter, bass synth, but if you can turn that filter off to a certain extent, maybe turn the resonance down, turn the cutoff all the way up, maybe that allows you to turn the filter off, or you know, less noticeable. But if you can do that, and then you can run that through different filters, and it should have a very similar effect. But I know like the things like the Enzo X, if I wanna turn off, I don't think I could turn off the filters on the Enzo X. Let me see something. No, I can't turn them off. The best I could do is cut them all the way up, turn the resonance all the way off. That's usually the best you could do with that. Options like that. But the Future Impact allows you to completely bypass the filter altogether, which then allows me to do things like this again without. That's what you're working with without the filters. But really allows you to have some different options. Even the bass envelope filter by MXR. Let's see what type of sounds we can get with this. So, even with the MXR bass envelope filter, another filter around $120, $150, you can get them used for probably about 80. The Spectrum, same thing. You can get those for about $100 as well used. Brand new, I think they like 180 or something like that. But changing the different filters, it makes all the difference in the world. Now, things like the the Zoom MS-60 CDR Plus also has really good filters in there. Like it has this one particular Moog style filter I like, and so let's hear that. So even with that filter, you get some nasty bass sounds with that. And all this is literally the same oscillator waveform. It's literally let me see what it's literally just that. Just running through different filters. So the filter can make the massive difference in the sound of a synth, a bass synth. So I would encourage you, even if you get something like a nice bass synth pedal that has a filter built into it, those are cool. Those always give you a good amount of options. But if you really want to get flexible, you know, you got to get some external filter going on, you know. And people will say, well, they say they do the same. Filters don't sound the same, even though they are technically called the same thing. Just because it's a low pass filter doesn't mean all low pass filters sound the same. They sound completely different. As you can hear, the blur sounds completely different than the bass balls. Bass balls is a twin filter, it's not a low pass filter, but it sounds completely different than the 6-pole filter that's on the Spectrum as well. And the Spectrum is a similar type of filter. It's just digital. So, you know, it's now I will say this. If I was going to have anything analog, as you can see, I don't use a whole lot of analog pedals. It's probably going to be a filter. The filters, it just makes it so warm. And of course, if I wanted to make that grittier, I can just add that resonance. So, you know, I would recommend if you're gonna trip about analog, I would say worry about the filter. Analog filters are super important. And also compressor, like you gotta have one analog compressor in there just to get that extra creamy compression like this. I love this Empress compressor. But actually for the synth stuff, I use the Atlas because I can have a compression of a solid state compressor, and then I run that into a tube compressor that is not compressing at all, but it's just adding some saturation to the color on there. And it also has, you know, built-in EQ. Say I don't want it to color like you see how much let me change this. You see how much that Ampeg colors? It's definitely gonna help that sound cut through. But say I didn't want to, I just wanted the EQ without the extra, you know, harmonic distortion that the Ampeg adds. I could do all that on the Atlas. So things like that, you know, adding little things like this to your synth rigs and stuff is definitely going to help you out. You know, an analog filter, a nice compressor. You know, it could be something like the Empress or something like the Atlas. Both of these are great. You know, this one has that, again, that nice warm analog sound to it. I actually might put this, like swap these. Only reason I have the Atlas last is because the Enzo X is running in stereo. Once I get to the Enzo X, the rest of my chain is stereo. So, but adding these filters definitely kicks butt. Then if I do want to have some of that Ampeg color to cut through, just warm and just what's massive. So far, you know, dang it. Sorry guys. So far we got Future Impact with that waveform number 50 in the preset packet to be labeled under 50. It say 50 bass and then Negus something. I forgot what this one exactly is, but running that into the electro-harmonic blurs, into the ToneX one and BA, Ampeg BA series head, into the Atlas compressor. Now we're gonna run it into I love TC Electronics Corona cores. So we turn a bit of that on. Oh my goodness. That's insane. That's insane right there. But you see the difference that chorus. Here's without it. Already a massive bass sound. But when you add this, almost makes it 3D, and then it also like it makes it way bigger. Like it makes it sound like this versus it already sounded like this, but it makes it sound like this. And you know, that just that combination of pedals right there, Future Impact V4, electro-harmonic blurs, ToneX 1, Atlas compressor into the TC Electronic Plethora X1 on the Corona cores. That's a whole like custom synth chain right there. Like imagine if you could take out parts of the synth and just be able to put in any other part there from any other company. Like, so I took out like say I'm using a Moog or something, you know, I love the Moog filter, but I like to have other sounds too. Say I could take that filter out and throw in a blurst and throw in this and throw in that. Oh, throw in a chorus, throw in overdrive, throw in, you know, flangers and delays. And let me see, I'm gonna add some. Mind you, if you don't want to spend all this money on getting these extra filters and modulations, just get you a Zoom MS-60 CDR Plus. It's going to have a bunch of filters. It's going to have a bunch of modulations, delays, and reverbs in there, as well as, was it any compressors? I'm not sure. But it definitely has a lot of options in there that are really, really good for like $129. So say you wanted to get a Future Impact, or if you have MXR bass synth or the Enzo X or whatever your choice of bass synth is, right? You can just get a Zoom MS-70 CDR Plus, and that's literally going to cover filters, delays, reverbs, and modulations. You know what I'm saying? And that way, and up to 6 effects in a chain at a time. So, you know, you can have it routed different ways. You can run it stereo in and out. So this pedal here is a really like if you want to save some money but still have some really quality effects. This the tri chorus on there. You mean to tell me that's without it? This is with it? You mean to tell me I can actually get that a lot closer to the sound I have on the plethora, but for that to be, you know, a clone of that chorus, that is really good. Still's got a nice wide sound to it. So just having that pedal there is going to give you a ton of options, and we're going to go through a few. Just running it through a flanger. You know, and detune is also a good way if you playing bass, you know, to just fatten up your tone just a little bit without not something you need on every song, but you know, on a ballad you can use detune instead of using chorus. Like a detune is a chorus, but it doesn't have an LFO to it, so it's just like a copy of your sound, just detuned or sharp or flat, you know, a little bit by a few. So, and that makes a chorus sound, and that gives you a fatter sound versus like your standard chorus. So that's what I actually prefer when I'm using my bass and I want to say I'm crafting a bass synth sound from a octave pedal. I definitely will opt to use a detune versus a chorus. So detune is actually my favorite type of chorus. It just like opens the sound up. It's like before it was like compact, and then when you turn it on, it's like it opens up, and then it's like it gives you space to hear all the like internal stuff going on with the sound. I don't know why. It just gives you that nice, you know, that nice imaging, stereo imaging as well. So warp phaser. Now Zoom, actually, this is my favorite phaser. Like out of all phasers, this warp phaser that's on the Zoom MS-60 CDR Plus, or just the Zoom pedals in general usually have this effect. And it's absolutely, it just has so much bottom. Come on, that's fire. Come on now. People be sleeping on the Zoom pedals. Ah. You run that joint through something like nice little delay and reverb and in the upper register. Oh, that's man. You know, and that's running with the Adriatic delay on the HX1 and the shimmer reverb on the TC Electronics Plethora X1. So, man, when you take the time to really like experiment with a sound, just the same way, you know, and I when I was doing this, I was taking the same approach I would take when I have just my bass when I had just my bass sound and I wanted to transform that into different things, you know, I would get used to like getting close to textures and different things like that and learning how to color them, you know, in different ways. But, you know, now that I have the ability to have oscillators track me in different ways, you know, whether I'm playing the keyboard or playing my bass, all these same sounds I have available on my bass because the Future Impact allows you to track your bass. This is not even like rocket science for real. It's just obvious. It's like, it's a really, in my opinion, something like this will replace your bass synth rig. This will actually replace a Novation bass station or like a Moog synthesizer. You can get pretty much identical sounds to this to those on here, like a lot of those sounds. But when you start adding, when you want to get out of just doing the Moog and the Novation bass station thing, you know, those sounds that everybody uses, you start adding different filters, start adding different modulations, start even adding different types of distortion. You know, some might be tube distortion, some might just be a hard, you know, a tube overdrive rather, and some of them might be like a hard distortion or something like that. hard clipping, distortion. You know, you just got to experiment. Or a ring modulator, you know, bit crushers. I got bit crushers. That's more of like that MXR vintage bass flanger. So that's just the oscillators and that modulation. So like if you wanted to get close to that texture with your bass, you'd have to have some type of heavy distortion that not like going crazy, you know, and then run it into there. It's a weird thing. He has like a grainy texture, but it's still smooth in certain ways. But yeah, that's just how you take your synth game to the next level, other than what you're playing and how you're playing it. You know, in terms of leveling up your sounds, you know, you just need to get the right tools. Now it's up to you and what you can afford and what you want to work towards. You know, if you want something like a ToneX 1 to color it like a bass amp would, you know, because that can make a huge difference in the sound. Let's go for, in fact, we'll go to the Spectrum. Just because I have that set up for more of a synth style filter. Plus, you know, the Spectrum has an ADSR in there for the filter as well. So beautiful. But you run that through, say, a Gensler Magellan preamp. It's going to be a whole different texture. Matter of fact, let me take this off. And we'll take this off. Right? Aguilar AG preamp. Ampeg BA. Versus something like, let's say, color box. Let's see what the color box sound like on it. I actually love the color box on some stuff. Still adds a nice bottom. Here's without it. With it. So you can really hear the difference it makes there. Versus like a TC Electronic. TC Electronic, what is that? BH500 head. The original joint. What else we got? Eden. Mark Bass. Laney. SGT. Ampeg SGT preamp. So the preamp, something like a ToneX one, can give you a lot of versatility. You don't have to have a bass preamp to run bass synth sounds for real, for real. Most bass synth sounds are running direct, but I like to have options. I just like to have options, and different bass preamps color bass sounds differently. So, the ToneX one is definitely a great option if you want versatility and something that's not going to take up a whole bunch of space on your pedal board. And it also has modulations in it, delays and reverbs, as well as distortions and overdrives and all that stuff. It can be a lot of different things. It's also got a noise gate, a tuner, what else on here? And compressor. So just getting a ToneX one with something like a Future Impact or Enzo X or the MXR bass synth filter is going to really elevate the pedal. It's going to, as long as you have the right models on there, which you can, all my tone packs are for my ToneX one are on the Patreon. All 11, everything you just heard is on the Patreon. It's 11 different bass preamp packs plus my actual personal preset list on there that I use on my 20 presets for my actual ToneX one, which covers like pretty much all the preamps. So, you can get either one. You just won't get all the presets, you get a little bit of each one. But something like this definitely adds a lot of versatility and doesn't have to be analog. So, digital, I don't mind mixing digital and analog together. Some people have a thing about that. They want to stay all analog or all digital, whatever. I don't care. I get what sounds good. So, bam, the ToneX one, that's one way you can use it. For this, we'll put this back on the color box. I like that one. And like I said, the Atlas compressor, I'm using a solid state compressor running into a tube compressor. So the solid state is 10-to-1, and the tube compression is just 1-to-1, which is no compression, while pushing the gain to get some of that saturation. So, and then you can run that into your Zoom MS-70 CDR Plus, or I know a lot of you guys have HX stomps or different things like that. As you can see, I got an HX1 over there. So now I will say this. Let's clear this air right now. Zoom has better modulations than Line 6. It does, especially for bass. I don't know about for guitar because I don't really use the guitar stuff like that. But Zoom has better bass-centered modulations like that sound good for bass, sound full on bass. And not to mention, they're really spot on, like very close to the originals. And while I would say Line 6 has a better stereo imaging for its reverbs, but the delays for both of those units are neck and neck. They're the same. It's nothing different to them. But the reverbs are bigger, naturally bigger on the Line 6 HX1, right? But you can make your reverbs bigger on the Zoom MS-70 CDR Plus so you'll put the reverb, and then I think it's like ambience or something like that. So I run the reverb into an ambient reverb. So I use 2 of the reverb algorithms to get a big, huge sound that I would get out of the Line 6. So, that if you're into that, if that helps somebody, hopefully it does. Also, I would say check out the TC Electronic Plethora X1. It's going to give you access to all TC Electronic modulations, delays, and reverbs, and what else is in there? I think it's a doubler in there. They just added the infinite sustainer to that lineup as well. So, that's an amazingly versatile pedal. So, what else we got here? Oh, Yeah. So I mean that's pretty much what you would need to like enhance your bass synths. You just need a filter. You know, if you want to add additional tone, tonal options to that bass synth pedal, and you want to add some modulations, and potentially some bass preamps. Notice I didn't say IRs. I don't use the IRs or the speaker emulations on bass synths. I want it to sound like a keyboard going direct, but I want it to also cut like a keyboard going direct. Because if you notice, you run it through a speaker, it's always a little duller than if you run it straight direct. So, that's two different things. But yeah, so filter, possibly, some compression, a nice compressor that maybe adds to the warm or the tone of it. Yeah. So feel free to comment, like, subscribe, share, send something to the Cash App. I appreciate it all. I definitely enjoy doing these types of videos for you guys. And of course, I'll be back with the bass, actual bass in my hand soon. But luckily for today's technology, these same sounds are available to you anyway. And I would say for the future impact, make sure you pay attention to your note off and your note on levels. It's going to make the biggest difference in your tracking, as well as how you're EQing your bass. I tend to keep the bass frequency flat. I boost the high mids and leave the highs flat as well, and that usually gets me better tracking, along with the two settings I just told you about: note on level and note off level. And on my personal unit, they're usually set around 35, 40 on each one. So, yeah. I mean, let me know what y'all think about these types of videos. Like, if let me know if this type of content is useful to you guys, how to like enhance, whatever you have going on. And the same thing, all these same pedals will work for your bass. So the cool thing about it is you don't have to go and buy a bass synth rig. Like, once you get something like a Future Impact or Enzo X, you can literally, if you want to have, you want to play key bass and you want to play bass, you can use the same pedal board. When I'm playing key bass at church temporarily while my hands are healing, I just take this pedal board. I literally just take this whole pedal board with me, and then I run the MIDI cable and bam. And I have two synths that I use. I use some bass synths on the Enzo X, and I use some on the Future Impact V4, so VIP. So, the versatility of your rig will definitely be increased by using something like a Future Impact over the other pedals. Enzo X too. The Enzo X, in terms of pads and it just gets so nasty with that pedal. Let me see. While we hanging out, might as well. And the cool thing with MIDI, I can have it set up where I can control both of these separately. The other cool thing you can do, you can also layer sounds with this. Let's bring it down. Appreciate that. So, you know, part of that is, this is the Enzo X. I love the Enzo X is crazy, yo. Stop playing. So in order to have the sounds layer, like the dry sound come through from the keyboard, I have to literally switch patches and then turn the patch off. You know, it'll stay on the patch and it still sends the MIDI, but it's not trying to track the audio now. So yeah, the Enzo X just gives you so much flexibility. Stupid. Thanks for subbing. See? And the YouTube finally helped me out. Appreciate it, YouTube. Thank you. And thank you for subscribing. Yeah, the roll sound is completely, that's just the let me see. That's literally just the motif standard vintage case. And that actually sounds really similar. My dad used to actually have a suitcase Fender Rhodes. It sounds very similar. So, yo, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat from Brazil. Appreciate you. I always appreciate y'all showing love, man. It means the world to me because you don't have to. But, you know, you taking the time to do that, thank you. This is what I'm talking about in general when it comes to sounds, though. It really is like a lot of experimenting, going back and forth. You see me turning this way, turning that way, trying to make this balance, balancing this out, like, and doing that. I'm so glad we live in a day and age where we got presets, boy. Can you imagine what they had to go through in the 70s and trying to have no presets? Like, every sound you have to redo all the time. Man, whatever. But yeah, so all those Enzo X pads you were hearing there are also available in the Enzo X pack on Patreon. So, you know, if you want, like I said, if you want any of my preset packs, you know, for the Future Impact, Enzo X, ToneX 1, 11 different preamp packs for that. Got a pack for the Zoom MS-60B plus, the MS-70CDR plus, also the Zoom B6. You know, you can check out all of these and the Source Audio C4 synth, which is still a great pedal. And if you have a C4 synth, you don't need to get rid of it. You know, I know a lot of people like, well, if I get the MXR bass synth, I got to get. No, you don't. That 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 C4 synth tracks decently well, and their sounds. Oscillators don't just sound the same on everything. Like the oscillators on this Future Impact don't sound the same as the oscillators on that C4 synth, even though they're modeled after the same thing. You know, I find the V4, the Future Impact has a much richer sound to it, like a much more organic sound. Like it literally sound. I could pretty much duplicate vintage synthesizers with it. So, and I mean, I don't mean one. I mean a bunch of them. So, man, I'm super impressed with that. But the C4 synth definitely does have, you know, a lot of stuff that's very useful in there as well. And you can, the same filters you hear me using on the Spectrum are all available on the C4 synth. You know, so. You know, that 6-pole filter, the 6-4 and the 2-pole filters are my favorite on there. But I also like some of the triple peak filters on the Spectrum and C4 synth. So if you have them, check those filters out. And I would say, you know, you wanna use a ADSR for a lot of the bass synths that has like a very short attack, a longer decay, and into pretty much to sustain as much sustain as you can and a short release. Like that's pretty much how you want that to be for the filter. You'll want that sustain level is actually your filter cutoff level. You know, I know it says sustain, but it's actually works as like a filter, how much the filter decays down from the cutoff how much it goes to the top, but the sustain will control how much it falls down back into the lower frequency. So yes, the Blurst is an absolute amazing pedal, and like I said, it's the only this is something I don't know if I said this about the Electron Blurst. It's the only filter up here that I have that is can be controlled with voltage. So, you know, you can use the CV. Like I said, I'm literally using the Future Impact to trigger this pedal. So, and then I'll give you a quick example. Now, even though I'm not using the sound from the Blurst, right? I mean, I'm not using the sound from the Future Impact. I still have the MIDI triggering it. So when I press a note, it opens the filter, right? And I have this just a Rode sound. Right? The Future Impact isn't even being triggered. Isn't even I have it out the effects loop, but even when I take it out, it's still triggering. Still triggering. So you definitely that's a useful feature too. The fact that I can use the future impact in situations like this where I want to use sound from the Yamaha to trigger the filter LFO starting in this case, or the actual filter opening. So I highly recommend any pedal you see me up here with. I pretty much will recommend it in some way, shape, or form. Because like I said, I don't just put it on my pedal board for no reason. Everything you see up here is up here for a reason, you know. But if you're only going to get one bass synth pedal, I can't say that I can recommend anything other than the Future Impact V4 at the moment, just for the, well, not just for any one reason. It's a bunch of reasons. It's the most flexible, has the most options for sounds, the most sounds available, most waveforms available, most options for those waveforms, like super versatile filters, great ADSR on there, as well as the tube overdrive is really good on there. The EQ, I'm not really too hot on the modulations from the Jane, but I haven't dived into them too much. But from what I've played around with the modulations on there, I'm not too excited about them. The chorus is okay, but you know, when you take into the fact that it's going to give you a nice, big, rich sound by itself, yeah. Now, if you want to step that up, or any of these bass synth pedals, the blurs definitely would do that. Now, the difference is going to be, this is the only one, like I said, that can be controlled using CV. You know what I'm saying? So that makes that blurs almost like the only option for this. To be honest, like I don't know if any other ones actually respond to that, but I don't think none of them do, because they would have advertised it. But yeah, so let me see what we got here. Yes, there's an expression input for the C4 synth. It is in the same place where the power and all that is. It's right under that button that you press to use the alternate parameters on the pedal. You know, it's just, but you gotta have. Do I have one of those cables up here? You need a specific cable. You need pretty much a 1/4 inch to an 1/8 inch TRS cable. So that it comes with it. So the cable it came with is it's a 1/4 inch, and then there's an 1/8 inch. That 1/8 inch part goes into the C4 synth expression input in the back, and then the other part goes into your expression pedal. Now you still have to go into the software and change what that expression pedal does, or set it to do anything at all. Otherwise, it's not set up to do anything. So if you have it hooked up already, then you might have to, it might not be that you don't have it hooked up properly. It might be that you don't have it set to the frequency cutoff, or whatever you want to, parameter you want to choose, the rate of a LFO or whatever the case. So And, you know, I'm going to get my hands on this MXR bass synth pedal just because I got to do a shootout between that, the C4 synth, Future Impact, and the Enzo X. And I already know which the winners are going to be. I mean, it's kind of obvious. It's really not even close. Like, only thing that interests me about that MXR pedal is if it does have some really good tracking. Otherwise, all the sounds you can get from that pedal, you can easily get from a Future Impact and way more. You just need to know what you're doing. Now, I do like that pedal for if you don't use synths, if you don't know what you're doing, I will say you're going to have a hard time with the Future Impact. And that's where I think some people, when they was, online, I was reading about the Future Impact, the main complaint was they really didn't know how to use it. It wasn't that the software is hard to use. They just don't know what the sliders do. They don't. And this it's because you have to know what a synthesizer does. Like if you don't know synthesizer terms and everything else, it's going to be hard to work this Future Impact. But that's what you got me for. That's what my packs are for. You just go to my Patreon and then you throw it on the Future Impact and you never have to design anything. Then from there, you can change cutoffs, resonance. You can just play around with the filter. You can do all that and get a ton of different sounds. So with my pack, you literally don't have to do anything but put it onto the pedal. And that'll save you a lot of hours of trying to get things, to sound correct. Wow, but with something like the MXR, it's really easy to use. Now I will say it does have some hidden parameters. I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times 3. So yeah. So it's you get those 24 parameters, but I think people want that. I think people are thinking these synth pedals are supposed to be like on the fly. Let me edit this on the fly. Nobody's doing that when they're on stage. I don't know what people's deal is with that. It's easy if I need to change something on stage. There's nothing you should be changing with your presets on stage like that. Like that you have to be able to get to it all the time where that's a real deal breaker. That's crazy. It should be more volume than anything that you're changing, or mix maybe, that you're changing on your sounds. They should already be dialed in when you get on stage. Okay? That's why we practice. That's why we spend time at home. So, I mean, I want you guys to get whatever you're comfortable with. I'm just giving you the truth about different things. Of course, MXR has a lot more money than Panda Audio. So it's easy for them to just bombard the market with everybody saying that they are the best bass synth. But y'all gotta remember, a lot of stuff paid, man. A lot of those are just commercials. They long commercials, they infomercials for that MXR pedal. They weren't actually giving you anything negative or playing anything that would show you the pedal's weaknesses. And that's one of the first things I go to in my videos. I go for the weaknesses because you more than likely can go and see 50,000 videos of everybody saying this pedal is great. This pedal is great. And nobody's actually trying to get in there. So I would definitely say don't miss the opportunity to get you one of these Future Impacts because, they eventually these are going to be collector's items for sure at some point. All the rest of them have pretty much become collector's items, all the previous versions and stuff. So, people still trying to get a deep impact, like for real. Like whatever. But so again, just for a quick recap, and then I'm gonna get out of here. If you want to enhance your bass synth, no matter what it is, an MXR, the Future Impact, Enzo X, C4 synth, first place I would start is with the filter. Changing out the filter, you can get a ton of different sounds. And then from there, EQ and compression or preamp, to color it and really give it some body, and then some modulations, And like I said, you got different options for modulations. Something like the MS-70 CDR Plus is going to give you 6 slots to play around with different modulations or mixing different modulations and all this other stuff. So that's compared to the Plethora X1, that's only going to give you 1 effect. HX1, that's 1 effect. So you got to take all this into account when you're buying these pedals. And, something like the Spectrum is going to give you 16 different filters, but are you going to use 16 different filters in there? No. You're probably going to use 3. The 6, 4, and 2 pole. Electro Harmonics makes great analog filters. Let's go and get that out there. So with the Blurst and the Bassballs being 2 of my favorite. And yeah, I think that's it. So that's the way you can kind of enhance your rig without doing too much or adding too much. But, adding that analog filter is definitely somewhere I would always recommend for bass players, because you can go back and use it on your actual bass and it's going to still sound amazing. All right. So if you haven't already, please like, subscribe, and share. I appreciate y'all hanging with me. If you want to hit that Cash App, I definitely appreciate it. And this has been another episode of All Bass Creations, effects, tutorials, demos, and review. Check me out on all other social media platforms at the Bass Negus, Negus. And any of my music you want to check out at allbasscreations.bandcamp.com.